Something very strange is happening to the Chinese car market. The cars arriving right now are no longer trying to look futuristic 10 years from now. They are trying to make 2026 feel old today. And the timing could not be better, because while the auto industry is still talking about the future, Chinese automakers are already putting 800-volt systems, LiDAR, giant AI computers, luxury cabins, and absurdly fast charging into cars that normal people can actually buy. So today we're looking at 5 new Chinese cars that almost feel like they skipped a generation. And the crazy part is that none of these are yesterday's forgotten concepts. These are new models, new generations, or cars entering the market right now. Let's start with the smallest one because it may be the one that quietly causes the biggest problem for everyone else. Number 5 is the new generation Smart Number 1. And yes, this is the same little smart crossover that many Americans would probably associate with something small, cute, and mostly designed for city driving. Forget that image. The new Number 1 has just been completely reworked, and the technology underneath it is almost ridiculous for something this small. The entire Chinese market range now comes with an 800-volt silicon carbide architecture as standard. Not the expensive version, not some optional performance package, the whole lineup. That alone changes the personality of this car. The new Number 1 uses a 16-in-1 integrated electric drive and a 61.52 kilowatt-hour LFP battery, producing up to 245 kilowatts, or roughly 328 horsepower, through the rear wheels. Smart claims 535 kilometers of CLTC range, but the number that makes the car feel futuristic is not the range, it is charging. The battery can go from 10 to 80% in around 12 minutes using 6C fast charging. 12 minutes. Think about how strange that would sound if someone described it to a Smart Number 1 owner from the first generation. The old car was built around a 400-volt system and could take around half an hour to go from 10 to 80%. Now, the same basic idea of a small premium city EV has been transformed into a car with twice the voltage architecture and a charge window that is dramatically shorter. And it is not just the powertrain. Smart says the new generation has more than 200 product upgrades, while the Ultra version adds a roof-mounted LiDAR, NVIDIA Orin-Y computing, and Geely's GASD H5 assisted driving system. There are 31 sensing components and up to 200 TOPS of computing power. That means this tiny crossover is carrying hardware that would have sounded like flagship equipment just a few years ago. The interior keeps the same philosophy: a 15.4-inch central display, a 10.2-inch instrument cluster, a 13-speaker Sennheiser audio system, ambient lighting, and an AI-focused software experience. And here is where the story gets uncomfortable for more expensive cars. The new Number 1 launched in China at limited-time prices from roughly 149,900 yuan, around $22,000. So you have an 800-volt EV, 6C charging, almost 330 horsepower, a 535-kilometer CLTC claim, and LiDAR-based assisted driving and a little crossover that can cost around 22 grand. It doesn't need to beat a 6-figure luxury EV to prove anything. It just has to make a $30,000 or $40,000 car look slow to evolve, and that is exactly what the Chinese market is doing right now, taking features that once justified a premium price and pushing them down into cheaper vehicles until everybody else has to follow. Number 4 is the Maextro V800, and this is where the definition of a luxury car gets completely twisted. Maextro is the premium brand created through the partnership between Huawei and GAC, and the V800 is an enormous 7-seat extended-range luxury MPV aimed directly at the kind of customer who might normally look at a Toyota Alphard, Lexus LM, or another ultra-premium people mover. But this thing is not simply a bigger van with softer seats. Underneath it is an 800-volt platform, dual-motor all-wheel drive, and a 65-kilowatt-hour battery, while a 1.5-liter range extender can keep the vehicle moving long after the battery is depleted. Depending on the version, the V800 claims up to around 1,335 kilometers of combined CLTC range and around 330 to 340 kilometers of pure electric driving. It can go from 0 to 100 in about 5.7 seconds, which is a hilarious number when you remember that this is a huge 3-ton-plus luxury MPV designed to carry executives rather than chase sports cars. But then you get to the chassis. The V800 can combine fully active suspension with steer-by-wire, and it has rear-wheel steering with up to 12 degrees of rear-wheel angle. The whole point is to make something physically enormous feel surprisingly manageable. and Huawei is not treating the cabin as an ordinary passenger compartment. There are zero-gravity seats, a massive second-row projection system, dual large rear displays, 41-speaker Huawei sound, refrigerators, and a cabin designed to feel more like a private lounge than a van. The V800 is also built around Huawei's Changan ADS5 driver assistance system with multiple LiDAR sensors and a large sensor network. This is where the car stops feeling like a vehicle and starts feeling like a rolling executive office. You can sit in the second row, recline, watch content on a giant screen, and let the intelligent driving system handle a large portion of the highway workload while the vehicle's chassis is constantly adapting underneath you. And the pricing tells you exactly who Maextro is attacking. The V800 launched from around 766,000 yuan, with the top flagship reaching about 1.016 million yuan. Pioneer versions are scheduled for September deliveries, and the strange part is that demand was already strong before deliveries began. Huawei executive Richard Yu said the V680 and V800 had collected more than 10,000 pre-orders within 23 days, with the V800 making up about 80% of them, and later said the two models secured 2,115 firm orders in just 1 hour after launch. So this is not some science fiction prototype hoping rich customers will notice it. It is a product being delivered into a market where premium buyers are clearly willing to pay for technology rather than simply a famous badge. And that's the uncomfortable comparison. In America, the luxury MPV category is barely a category at all. In China, a company can build a million-yuan rolling lounge with steer-by-wire active suspension, rear steering, and an 800-volt electrical system, and expect people to fight over it. You can laugh at the shape if you want, but if you ride in it for 10 minutes, you may stop laughing. Number 3 is the Changan Nevo Q06, and this one is interesting because it takes the futuristic technology and puts it into a much more normal-looking family SUV. The Q06 was officially unveiled in July and is scheduled to launch in China in September 2026. It uses Changan's SDA architecture and comes with an 800-volt silicon carbide electrical system that supports 6C ultra-fast charging. The Q06 measures roughly 4.84 meters long with a 2.94-meter wheelbase, so this is not some tiny city car. It is a proper family SUV, and that is exactly why the technology matters. You could walk past the Q06 and think, okay, another Chinese crossover. Then you notice the sensor on the roof. Then you hear the charging claim. Then you look inside. Then the whole thing starts making less sense in the best possible way. The Q06 uses a roof-mounted LiDAR system and Changan's Tianshu Pilot Ultra assisted driving technology. In some configurations, it uses dual motors, and the platform is designed around high-rate charging rather than the older 400-volt formula. And this is where the Chinese EV race gets really interesting. Range gets the headline, but charging determines how much time you actually lose every week. A vehicle that can accept enormous amounts of power during a short stop can be more convenient than one with a larger battery that spends much longer connected to the charger. The Q06 is also part of the broader shift toward software-defined vehicles. Instead of treating the car as dozens of disconnected computers, Changan's SDA architecture is designed around a more centralized electrical and computing structure. That means the vehicle is not just being built around what it can do on day one, it is being built around what it can become later. Driver assistance can improve, parking can improve, cabin functions can change, software can be updated without changing the hardware underneath the vehicle, and that is a very different way of thinking about a family SUV. Imagine spending years developing a car only to discover that the competitor released a better driver assistance system 6 months later. In the Chinese market, that is normal, so the companies have responded by making the car more updatable from the beginning, and the Q06 is arriving right in the middle of that fight. It is not a research project, it is scheduled for a real September launch. It has to compete on charging, intelligence, cabin technology, and price against a ridiculous number of other new EVs arriving at the same time. That pressure is exactly what makes these cars evolve so quickly. And if you're sitting in an American dealership looking at a family SUV with a familiar gasoline powertrain, no LiDAR and charging technology that belongs to another era, this is where the comparison starts to hurt. Because the Q06 isn't trying to be a futuristic concept, it is trying to be your neighbor's next family car. Number 2 is the GAC Trumpchi Yue 7, and visually, This is the car that can fool you for a second. It looks like somebody took a Land Cruiser, mixed in some Defender attitude, and then gave it a Chinese technology package. The UA7 is a large 5-seat plug-in hybrid off-roader from GAC Trumpchi, and GAC says the new model is scheduled to launch in the third quarter of 2026. The body is over 5 meters long, more than 2 meters wide, and nearly 1.94 meters tall. It has the square proportions you expect from a serious off-road machine, complete with wide fenders, large bumpers, and a swing-out rear door with a spare wheel. But under that traditional shape is a completely different powertrain. The UA7 uses GAC's GMC 3.0 plug-in hybrid system with i4WD, combining a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine with 2 electric motors. The electric motors can produce a combined peak of around 400 kilowatts, roughly 536 horsepower, while the larger battery option gives up to about 188 kilometers of pure electric driving. And yes, there is LiDAR on the roof, with an 896-line sensor. But the part that makes the UA7 genuinely interesting is what happens when the road stops looking like a road. GAC says the vehicle can maintain traction even when 3 wheels are off the ground, and its low-speed torque multiplication can reach up to 5 times. That means this is not a soft family SUV wearing an off-road costume. It is being designed around actual traction control in difficult terrain. And because it is a plug-in hybrid, you can use the electric system for quiet urban driving and then rely on the combustion engine and hybrid system when you're traveling long distances into areas where charging infrastructure is not exactly abundant. That combination is something the West has barely started exploring properly. You don't have to choose between an electric commuter and a gasoline-powered adventure machine. One vehicle can do both. Then, GAC adds intelligent chassis hardware and air suspension capability, giving the UA7 another trick. It can change its behavior depending on whether you are driving through a city, climbing a rough trail, or traveling on a highway. And this is exactly why the UA7 works so well in a video called Cars That Shouldn't Exist Yet. A large off-road SUV still looks mechanically traditional. Then you put LiDAR on the roof, give it more than 500 horsepower of electric-assisted output, and make the drivetrain intelligent enough to keep moving with wheels hanging in the air. Suddenly, the old shape is hiding a very new machine. And if the American market had a vehicle like this sitting next to the usual midsize SUV lineup, people would absolutely notice. Instead, most American viewers will probably first meet it through a YouTube video. And then we reach number 1, and this is where the entire list comes together in a way that sounds almost too simple. The Leapmotor A05 is not the most powerful car here. It is not the most luxurious. It does not have a $1,000,000 price tag or a giant second-row cinema. It is a compact electric hatchback. And that's exactly why it may be the most important car on this list. Leapmotor unveiled the new A05 in July as a smart compact EV, with the same model expected to be known globally as the B03. Pre-orders opened in China on July 27th, and the official launch took place on August 11th after a one-day delay caused by severe weather. Pricing came in from around 63,900 yuan, with higher versions reaching around 90,900 yuan. Stop there. Under $10,000 for a brand new electric car is already crazy enough. But Leapmotor didn't build a cheap car and strip out the technology. The A05 uses a Qualcomm 8295 cockpit chip as standard, a 14.6-inch center screen, an 8.88-inch instrument display, and a 12-speaker audio system. It offers 39.8 kilowatt-hours and 53 kilowatt-hours batteries, with claimed CLTC range of 405 and 510 kilometers respectively. Fast charging is available, and LiDAR can be specified for the intelligent driving package. But the reason I put the A05 at number 1 is the philosophy behind it. The other 4 cars can be dismissed as expensive technology showcases. The Maextro V800 costs hundreds of thousands of yuan. The UA7 is a large specialized SUV. The Q06 is a mid-size family crossover. The smart number 1 is positioned as a premium small EV. The A05 is trying to take the same technological direction and make it cheap enough for ordinary first-time buyers. That is how a futuristic feature becomes normal. It doesn't happen when a supercar gets it. It happens when a company puts it into a car people can afford. The A05 is compact, but its interior has been designed to maximize space, with flexible seating, practical storage, and a large dual-layer trunk. It has friendly face-like lighting and a modern design, but underneath the playful look is a digital experience, an intelligent driving capability, aimed at bringing premium technology into the compact class. And the starting price makes the whole situation even harder for traditional automakers to ignore. The A05 isn't asking a wealthy customer to spend luxury money to experience new technology. It is asking normal buyers to stop accepting that affordable cars have to be technologically behind. That is the real thread connecting all 5 cars. The smart number 1 says 800 volts can become standard in a small premium crossover. The Maextro V800 says a luxury van can use steer-by-wire, rear-wheel steering, and active suspension. The Nevo Q06 says LiDAR and 6C charging belong in a mainstream family SUV. The UE7 says an off-road plug-in hybrid can combine serious traction hardware with a modern sensor suite. And the A05 says all of this eventually has to become affordable. That's the part the traditional industry should be worried about. Not one car, not one company, not one specification. The speed at which futuristic hardware moves downward through the market. Because once an 800-volt system becomes normal in a small car, charging expectations change. Once LiDAR moves into cheaper models, driver assistance expectations change. Once large screens, powerful chips, and AI assistants appear in affordable vehicles, the definition of an expensive interior changes. And once buyers become accustomed to these features, taking them away becomes almost impossible. This is why the title isn't really saying these cars literally should not exist. It is saying that the timeline feels wrong, the technology feels early, the price feels early, the combination feels early, but they're here. And that is the real story. A few years from now, nobody may call a 500-kilometer EV with an 800-volt system futuristic. Nobody may be surprised by LiDAR. Nobody may care that a family SUV has active suspension or rear-wheel steering. They may simply expect it. And when that happens, the most interesting question will not be which country built the fastest car. It will be which country made the future affordable first.